Hello, this is your host, and tonight we're going to tell a long horror story about a house that was haunted by a woman in white. This chilling tale has been passed down through generations of scaredy cats. So get ready to say goodbye to your peace of mind, because this story is guaranteed to make you never look at houses the same way again. The Haunted House, a terrifying tale of an old woman who haunts the halls of her abandoned home. The sun beat down on the cracked asphalt of the driveway, reflecting off the grimy windows of the Victorian mansion. It had stood vacant for years, its paint peeling like sunburnt skin. But it wasn't just the house's dilapidated exterior that kept people away. Stories circulated through the town like the stench from the nearby sewage plant, tales of a ghastly apparition that made regular appearances. Locals called her the Woman in White. One sweltering summer evening, a group of teenagers decided to test their courage against the legends. Armed with flashlights and bravado, they marched up the weed-choked path to the front door. It creaked open as if inviting them in, revealing a cavernous space filled with shadows. As they ventured deeper into the house, the temperature plummeted, sending shivers down their spines. Suddenly, a floorboard creaked above them, and heavy footsteps echoed through the hallway. They spun around, their lights frantically searching for the source of the noise. Then they saw her, the Woman in White. Her translucent form glided down the stairs, her mournful eyes fixed on them. The teenagers screamed and ran, her ethereal wails following them all the way home, but the story doesn't end there. Because since then, many have dared to enter the haunted house, each hoping to uncover the truth behind the legend. Some claimed to hear the woman's mournful cries in the dead of night. Others swore they felt a cold hand brush against their own as they explored the dusty rooms. But perhaps the most terrifying tales come from those who saw her, the Woman in White, standing at the foot of the staircase, beckoning with a finger for them to follow her into the darkness. But who was the Woman in White, and why did she haunt the old house? To find the answer, we have to go back to the beginning. The year was 1898. The bustling city of Ashton had recently annexed the outskirts, transforming what was once a peaceful neighborhood into a desirable spot for the wealthy elite. One such individual was Charles Blackwood, a successful businessman who built his dream home on the corner of Elm and 13th Street. It was a grand affair, 5 stories of intricate architecture with turrets and stained glass windows. But for some, including the town's reclusive historian, Edward Culpeper, the house was an eyesore, a symbol of the city's encroaching corruption. For years, Culpeper had warned Charles the house would bring him nothing but bad luck. He spoke of ancient burial grounds beneath the property and of restless spirits that would never allow anyone to find happiness there. But Charles, blinded by his own ambitions, ignored these warnings. He moved into the house with his young wife, Eleanor, and their 2 children, determined to make a life for himself and his family. However, strange things began to happen almost immediately. Doors slammed shut, objects flew across the room, and whispers seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. Then there were the dreams. Every night, Eleanor was plagued by visions of a woman dressed in white, always at the foot of the staircase, crying out for help. At first, she dismissed them as figments of her imagination, the byproduct of an overactive mind. But the dreams persisted, becoming more vivid and frequent until they consumed her waking hours. As the months passed, Eleanor became increasingly withdrawn, spending all her time locked in her bedroom. Charles, desperate to save his marriage, consulted the local priest, Father Michael, who advised him to have the house blessed. But even that didn't help. The supernatural activity continued unabated, growing more violent with each passing day. Then one stormy night, it all came to a head. Charles was reading in his study when he heard a blood-curdling scream. Rushing to Eleanor's room, he found her standing by the window, her eyes wide with terror. She told him of the Woman in White, how she'd come to her in a dream and demanded that she be freed from the house. Charles, though skeptical, could see the genuine fear in his wife's eyes, so he agreed to help her. Together, they went to see Father Michael, who, after hearing their story, agreed to hold a seance. The plan was to contact the spirit and offer her the peace she was seeking. However, the session quickly took a terrifying turn. As the priest began chanting the ancient words, the room grew colder and the air grew thick with the scent of decay. Then, from the corner of his eye, Charles saw the specter of a woman in white, her eyes blazing with fury. She lunged at Eleanor, knocking her to the ground. Charles rushed to help his wife, but it was too late. The spirit had already possessed her, her icy fingers digging into Eleanor's flesh. With a final scream, Eleanor's body went limp. The ghost vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving behind a terrified Charles and a dead wife. In the aftermath, Charles fell into a deep depression, unable to understand how his beloved Eleanor could have been taken from him. Father Michael, consumed with guilt, left Ashton, never to return. And the house on Elm Street stood empty, its windows like vacant eyes staring out at the world. But the story doesn't end there. For those who knew the house's history claimed that Charles's grief manifested in an unnatural way. Some said he wandered the streets at night, forever searching for his lost love. Others claimed his anguished cries could be heard echoing through the empty rooms. And then there were the dreams, the ones that drove Eleanor to madness, warning of the house's dark secret. People said they received dreams from her, too vivid and disturbing, always the same. A woman in white, trapped at the foot of the stairs, reaching out, pleading for help. Years turned into decades, and the house continued to stand, a silent testament to the tragedy that had unfolded within its walls. It became known as the Blackwood Manor, and the ghost became known as the woman in white, forever bound to the house and forever mourning the loss of her soul. Ashton changed, but the house remained a relic of a bygone era. Now it stands abandoned, its paint peeling, its windows boarded up. The townspeople avoid it, respecting the sorrow that lingers there. But every now and then, someone ventures inside, hoping to uncover the truth of the legend. They say if you listen closely, you can still hear the echoes of the past, the whisper of voices, the creak of floorboards, and at the foot of the stairs, the mournful cry of the woman in white. In the end, the story serves as a reminder that sometimes our greatest fears are born from the darkest corners of our own hearts. And with that chilling thought, we bring this long horror story to a close. If you enjoyed this tale of the supernatural, be sure to subscribe for more spine-tingling stories. We've got plenty more where that came from, so click the subscribe button and join our growing community of scaredy cats. And if you really want to test your bravery, leave us a comment below telling us what you thought of the story. Who knows, you might just become part of the legend yourself. Until next time, stay safe, stay sharp, and never, ever turn your back on a house that's haunted by a woman in white. Thank you for listening. This has been your host. If you want to hear more scary stories, check out our other content.